All right. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the webinar brought to you by the EASSI program. This webinar will be talking about electric rebates and incentives. My name is Alex Bazan. I'm the Sustainability Project Manager for the City of South Bend, and I manage the EASSI program. So let's get started here. So this is our agenda for today. We'll do a quick welcome and some introductions. We'll go over the EASSI timeline. And so this is, although this webinar is for the EASSI program, we've also opened this up to the community. So for folks that might tune in to watch this recording or might join later today, although this is through the EASSI program, a lot of what we'll be talking about can definitely be relevant to you, whether you're a nonprofit or business. So we will do a quick rundown of the EASSI timeline. I wanted to chat a little bit about the Energy Star Portfolio Manager and how that might be helpful for you in terms of the buildings or facilities that you manage. And then we'll get right into the meat of the webinar, which is talking about electric rebates with Roger DePoy, who's with Indiana Michigan Power. Then we'll have some time for Q&A and next steps. So this is a roadmap of the EASSI program. So we are now here the week of between the week of April 10th and the week of May 1st. I believe the majority of you have received a on-site energy assessment report from Donna, who conducts those reports. I believe there might be one or two reports out there that we need to send out, and we're just finalizing some of the details for those reports. Then the week of May 1st is when we will review that assessment report with you. And so we highly encourage to invite stakeholders, your board members, to that meeting to review that report and to ask any questions and to come with ideas to pursue projects that you have in mind based on that report. And then moving forward, based on that meeting, you'll be looking into collecting quotes and different projects that you would like to pursue for the EASSI program. And then this is just a little bit more granular details in terms of the EASSI timeline, but also kind of gives you a little bit more of a bird's eye view on some of the post-assessment process. And so now that most of you have received your EASSI assessment report, what next steps looks like are sharing that report with others within your organization, meeting with the city to talk about that report, collecting quotes, sharing those quotes with the city, making sure that those projects are eligible and qualify for the program in terms of being able to receive a grant for that particular project, and then the reimbursement and post-project process. And these are things that we can chat about in our meeting when we meet, and also graphics that I can share with you via email or phone call. So let's get started with the Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So Energy Star Portfolio Manager, what is it? For folks that don't know, so this is a free online tool for organizations where you can measure and track energy, water consumption, GHG emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. Those are the emissions that contribute to climate change. And this is brought to you by the Department of Energy and the Environmental Protection Agency. And so they put together this tool that allows you to measure and track energy and water consumption. And as the saying goes, you can't manage what you can't measure. And so the Portfolio Manager tool allows you to manage and track how your building is doing in terms of its energy consumption. So you can manage and benchmark your energy consumption over time. 40% of commercial buildings, including 35% of Fortune 500 companies, use the Portfolio Manager tool. And so these are just a couple screenshots of what that tool looks like. And so you can upload your utility bills here and manage and benchmark over time. You can also compare your building with other buildings that are of a similar make and sort of usage, and so you can sort of do a peer-to-peer of how your building performs compared to buildings across the country. So highly encourage you to check out this tool. You can go to energystar.gov/benchmark to learn more. And again, this is a free tool and something that might be helpful for you to manage for your building or facility or facilities. and might be something helpful in terms of looking at how you evaluate other future energy efficiency projects over time and how that is impacting your energy consumption based on those particular projects. So now I would like to introduce our presenter for the webinar, Roger DePoy. He's of Indiana Michigan Power. So Roger, maybe perhaps you want to do a quick introduction, and then feel free to let me know to advance the slides. Oh, Roger, I think you're on mute.
I am. Usually that's what people prefer. I've been in energy efficiency and energy management much longer than my career with Indiana Michigan Power. Back in 1988, I was at Century Center. I was the director of operations there, and I wrote an RFP and distributed that to Havel Brothers, Johnson Controls, and Honeywell, asking them what they could do to help us reduce our energy consumption. And I don't know if any of you have a long-term view of this convention center, but we had in the lower level 1,500 100-watt incandescent light bulbs. Those all ended up getting switched to 9-watt PL style tubes. We put variable speed drives on all 9 air handlers, did outside air resets and all kinds of technical things like that. And a project that was supposed to pay itself off in 4.7 years paid itself off in 2.9 years. So that's what was called a performance contract. So in other words, it actually didn't cost us out of pocket. We reallocated what we sent. So rather than sending everything to, at that time, which would have been I&M, some of it went to I&M and some of it went to Johnson Controls, and that's how we paid for the project. So there are lots of other ways to fund projects. And I want to interject as well. In my past life, I was the energy specialist for First Source Bank. We had approximately 100 buildings, and I had every one of those buildings entered into Portfolio Manager. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. So as you're doing mechanical projects and upgrades and lighting upgrades and things like that, gives you a picture of, am I making progress here? You get to a point then where if you've actually reached the threshold, you can claim that as an Energy Star. I'll have to apologize because I don't recall the designation anymore, but they had a nice little sticker you could put right on your door as you wonder. So there we go. So go ahead and, if you would here, Alex, advance the slide. So what do? I manage our commercial and industrial rebate program, and we provide rebates anywhere from to a one-person flower shop up to a steel mill, and pretty much anything in between. And as we get into this, you'll see in terms of what the qualified projects are. So let's go ahead and advance that here, Alex.
All right. Apologies for that. Just as a reminder for folks that join, please be sure to mute your microphone.
So who can participate in this unless you have opted out? And that's only available to, in essence, mega users in the state of Indiana. So it's going to be odd, I think, if you look at this list, anybody that has a commercial account with us is going to be eligible for these rebates. And we use a company called Clear Result. They, in essence, have a number of field reps out. They can come out and call on you. They can, look at bills. They can do walkthroughs and point things out. And they can assist you then in filling out the rebates as well. So we've certainly had success over the years with people doing this in the South Bend market and want to build on that. So next slide, please, Alex. So there's kind of what I said already. We can come out, one of these persons can do a walkthrough, identify opportunities. Some of these things obviously won't apply to, those of you that are on here today, but if I'm out walking a facility, I'm going to be looking, obviously, what kind of lighting do they have? If it's fluorescent of any type, huge savings. If there's old metal halide lights, if I hear air leaks, compressed air is far and away the most expensive utility on any plant. So there's a lot of things we can do to help customers there. So let's kind of just real quickly, we can come out, we can identify rebates, opportunities. We have trade allies, and trade allies are vetted contractors that we've worked with. So they can come out and help as well. They know the programs extremely well. We can track the schedules and make sure that everyone is indeed eligible. Occasionally we'll have somebody submit something, and we'll take a peek at it, and something doesn't look right with the account number, and we'll find out that they're in an area where either we overlap or we change to another service provider. Mishawaka as an example. Mishawaka has their own utility that does not participate in rebates, but by the same token, we have pockets within Mishawaka right across from Judy Creek Golf Course to the west. There's an apartment complex, the villas at Fur Road. We have them, but everything surrounding that is Mishawaka. I'm going to
Roger, I think
you can
you're
see
on
how
mute.
considerate a family we are to keep a landline for the telemarketers that call all the time. Our 3 sons always tell us we're nuts to have a landline. Sorry about that. So I think we can go, let's go to the next slide, Alex. So what did we do last year? This is 2 states. This is both our service territory in Michigan, Indiana. We did 555 rebate applications, which were approved. We saved 53,221 or 221,301 kWh. The average home in the United States uses about 1,000 kWh a year. So you can see that's a large number. Some of them were very small projects. Some were quite large. But by no means would we ever turn down any project. And then we paid out over $3.5 million in rebates to customers last year. Let me add as well, if you have any questions, we have Q&A at the end, but I certainly don't have any problem answering questions as we go. So if something comes up and you don't want to forget it, please feel free to chime in here.
Yes, and please feel free to also enter it in the chat if you're not able to use your mic. Be happy to pause and answer those questions.
Okay, next slide, please. So what are the benefits of saving energy? And I think we can skip right past this and we'll get into some of those benefits. You can get a good connection with people in the industry. I've been fortunate of all the projects I've done. It's really neat to see where you've gone out, you've done a walkthrough, let's say, and maybe it's a small operation, and they changed 10 fluorescent light bulbs to LED, and you think, a big deal. But then they call again and they say, hey, I was thinking maybe my air conditioner here could use an upgrade. And you sit and you develop that conversation with somebody, and then they end up becoming their own energy advocate. They'll bounce things off you. Second here on this, reduce energy and operating costs. I think obviously those are big for all of us. I'd like to sit here and tell you that we will never have a rate increase in history. We all know that that's not the case, but you can certainly mitigate those increases by becoming more more energy efficient. Improving comfort, certainly space comfort, space temps. Safety, that's a big one in many environments. There are standards within all industries for the amount of foot candles that you need to provide for lighting. And it's amazing in lighting projects over the years where I've gone back and someone said, we used to have a lot of scrap, or we used to have a failure rate on a certain number of pieces because we just couldn't see well. And now it's brightly lighted. Um, I'm not a human resources person, but I know there are studies that show that people are more motivated and happier when there's good lighting in the facility. Reducing shutdowns, and again, it's probably geared more to manufacturers, but in all cases, those things happen. Extending equipment life. If we can find a way to have a motor run less, the less it runs, this stands to reason the longer it will last. So we can do things like electronically commutated motors, variable speed drives, things like that. And then preparing for carbon neutrality goals. That is one of the overriding pieces of using less and less, regardless of what your thoughts are on how that electricity is produced. The less we use, it is a good thing. So the next slide, please. And I apologize too. I don't know if I've got a big cold coming on or bronchitis or what, but if you can't understand, just ask me to repeat something. So the first path on all of these programs is what's called the prescriptive path. We have a list of measures, and if you look at those 4 bullet points, they're going to be lighting fixtures, lamps. HVAC is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Drives, a drive I alluded to earlier, variable speed drives, variable frequency drives. If you have a motor that runs but doesn't have a constant load on it, by putting on a variable speed drive, something that used to run at 50% all the time, there's a thing called an affinity law, and what you do is you cube the speed of the shaft. So if it's running at 50%, that's 0.5 times 0.5 times 0.5, which will be 0.125. So instead of using 50% of the energy you're using 12.5%, and you're still getting the same amount of work done. So on that prescriptive list, it will say, for instance, if you have a 4-foot T8 fluorescent tube, and a T8, anytime you hear T in lights, T is this real dark, mysterious designation. All T means is tube. And 8 is how many eighths of an inch it is. So a T8, therefore, is 8/8 or 1 inch in diameter. The old fluorescent lamps were T12s, the ones that were 1.5 inches. You may still have some at home over a workbench, but I think in most places, whether it's an office or a home or a center of some type manufacturer, we've probably reduced those things. But there will be an amount listed right for that. So if you have a 4-foot tube, you're going to get $4 as a rebate if you change that to an LED tube. If you have a 2-foot by 4-foot lay-in fixture or a troffer, these are the type of fixtures you see that are, they're flush with the ceiling. They're not surface mounted. They'll usually hang on a grid. Changing that to an LED fixture, depending on how many lamps are in it, could be anywhere from about $12 to $20 for the rebate for that. But the thing with prescriptive is it will always list what the measure is, and it will list what the rebate is. So, it would be relatively easy for a user to say, okay, if I have a certain number of T8 fluorescent lamps and I want to change them all to LED, I can look right there, see it's $4 per lamp, and I know what my rebate is. Now, you may not know what your energy savings is. You don't need to know that on the prescriptive. We're going to get into custom here in a minute, and there it becomes a little more important. But prescriptive is a big use, certainly for first-time users, and any time that it's a straightforward assist, it's an easy way to go. So let's move to the next one, Alex. So one of the things we did here, it used to be that prescriptive stopped at at $10,000. So in other words, your rebate could not exceed 10,000. If it was going to be more than that, it would automatically go to the custom program. We doubled that amount to 20,000, which makes it more available to more users. This next bullet point, where applicable, measures must be listed on a qualified product list. DLC stands for Design Lights Consortium. It's an industry trade group, and it basically, if you go to Walmart or Lowe's or Home Depot, you pick up a light, and somewhere on that, or a bulb, I should say, you look at that package, and somewhere it's going to tell you what its color rendition is, how many watts it uses, what the savings would be annually, how long it's going to last. And right on there, you'll see either Energy Star or DLC rated and certified. So one of the other things with prescriptive, and this can really help people, because this is something that drove me nuts when I was out in the field. I could go into a building and they say, "Oh, we just changed all our lights." And I said, "Well, when?" "No, 3 months ago." Well, at that time, we could not go back. If you had already changed them, it was too late. Now, we can go into a look back period of 90 days. So in other words, if there's something that you've done not realizing that you could have gotten a rebate, we can go 90 days back to assist you in getting a rebate for that project. So there are some caps, as you see here. The rebate cannot be more than 75% of the total project cost. And everybody would love this next one. It's capped at $150,000 per site, or $300,000 if it has multiple sites. So take a Speedway gas station. They're all over the place. So Speedway could get up to 150,000. Terrible example, because they would never qualify for one that large. But any one location could get 150,000, and then if you aggregated all of those, it would be capped at 300,000. Okay. Is anybody that's part of this? I was trying to look at some names as you were coming on. Anybody here part of a group that has multiple locations? Hearing none, let's move on. Custom. If by its very nature a project does not fall under prescriptive, it automatically becomes custom. Custom projects every year, when we have big projects, those tend to run through the custom program, because there is not a list of custom measures. Custom is just what it says. It's something that doesn't get pigeonholed, if you will. So what we're going to do in custom is we're going to look at what that savings is. And consumption is always measured in kWh, kilowatts per hour. And if you're doing a lighting project, you're going to get a nickel for every kWh you save. That doesn't sound like a lot, maybe. But if you save 500,000 kWh, that's a $25,000 rebate. If it's not lighting, it's 6 cents, and it will pay obviously a little higher there. So the types of things we're going to use, the TRM, Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, I think Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken, all use a thing called the TRM, just stands for the Technical Resource Manual. Michigan has the MEMD, the Michigan Energy Measures Database, and some night when you can't sleep, just Google that, and it will tell you every possible thing that you could do to save energy, putting insulation on injection molding machines, putting engineered nozzles on that are a 1/4 inch, an 1/8 inch, a 1/2 inch, operating 1,000 hours a year, 2,000, 3,000. So they're manuals that have been put together over a period of years by engineers. And as you can see, what types of things, automation systems, compressed air, new construction, major renovation, a lot of big HVAC projects. Could be changing refrigeration, many of those types of things as well. And again, all of that is going to be based on savings of consumption. And obviously, the more hours that a facility or an office is open, the more the potential savings is going to be. So it's a good way to go. Prescriptive, we talked about here, the slide pass. One of the things with prescriptive, it has to be a 1-for-1. So let's say we walk into a school classroom and there's 15 light fixtures in there. If they switch to 10 LED light fixtures, that's automatically going to be custom because it was not a 1-for-1 switch. And I realize, hearing a lot of these things, if you remember 5%, you're probably doing great. That's why it's nice that Alex is recording this. But prescriptive 1-for-1, outside of that, custom. So let's go to the next slide, Alex. So custom, that's the other difference with prescriptive, from prescriptive rather. Custom projects must be pre-approved. And one of the reasons for that, as we get into the late third quarter and fourth quarter, we're going to be looking real hard at budgets, and we don't want to find that, the money's going to run out. And if I say run out, it's a little bit of a misnomer because someone would always get paid for a project, but it might sometimes go into the next year. But that's the reasoning for pre-approval. One of the reasons that is. The other part is we want to actually verify. We have engineering firms on retainer. We want to verify that those savings are actually what you think they are, because there's nothing worse than a company spending a good share of money and finding out that, well, we really didn't save anything. So we can kind of nip those in the buds. Project payback has to be within 1 to 8 years prior to a rebate. And the reason we say 1 year, if a project is going to pay it back. So in other words, if you spend $10,000 and you save 12,000, obviously that's less than a year. You're going to do that project regardless whether you get a rebate or not, just because it makes such overriding economic sense. After 8 years, there are some people that would probably choose to do that. We, however, will not pay a rebate if the payback is over 8 years. And we'll work with our customers. There's times where there is a payback that looks like it's going to be too quick. And engineering will say, okay, well, let's not forget you're putting new lights in, but did you include new junction boxes? Did you include the relock? Did you include the wire nuts, the MC cable? Because sometimes you figure out another couple $100 of materials, and all of a sudden now it's slightly over a year and we can pay the rebate. And then the incentives are always going to be paid on your energy savings first year. This is not an ongoing payment. The caps are the same as in prescriptive, as you can see. So I'm not going to repeat those. Next slide, please, Alex. So everybody, I'm sure today has a computer. Electricideas.com. Don't do it now, but look that up and bookmark it. That has every single one of our rebates for residential, because I'm assuming you don't live where you work. So every one of us is a resident of some place and we work someplace. So all the rebates for both states are in there. And I really strongly encourage you to bookmark that. It's something, we add things to it. Can be very, very helpful to you. If you have questions, then great. Then you can call, you can email, but just I can't speak highly enough about that electricideas.com. We worked very hard over about the last 7 years, and I know a lot of people that that's the first thing they look at in the morning. Next, please. So we said, let's do your project. Here's a typical timeline. All right, an application. And maybe this is, you've got, a local contractor, a Herman and Getz, a Kuntz Wagner, whoever it happens to be, they're going to do a lighting project for you. If it's custom, it's going to need to be pre-approved. We'll confirm that everything is eligible. In other words, A, you are a customer. B, it's something that falls on that prescriptive list. Every now and then we'll see a light that's not DLC. That doesn't mean we won't approve it. If that particular manufacturer can show that their lighting parameters meet DLC standards, then we'll still let it go. Post-installation verification. So in other words, you tell us what you're going to do. Randomly will come out after the job has been done to verify that what was done is indeed what you said you were going to do. And then the payment. We use a third party. So I mentioned earlier, we have a company called Clear Result. They are our back of the house, so to speak. They're the boots on the ground for us, working with customers. But then additionally, we use a company called ADM, and everybody there has multiple PhDs. I mean, these guys are statisticians. I'm pretty good at math. I read their algorithms and I'm completely lost, but they will really drill down and make sure that even after we've done projects, were they truly cost effective? We get into things like, ex ante gross savings, post ante realized savings, and in our case, the IURC, the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission, wants to make sure that all these programs are doing indeed what they say they'll do. So that's why we have a third party. So I think we can go to the next slide, Alex. I think this is where I was going to just mention a case study. Anybody that's been around town, if you go out to 1902 West Sample, God, I think probably 20 years ago, that was built for TJ Maxx as a warehouse. I had a lot of employment for a few years and then sat vacant. And Lippert Components out of Elkhart took that building over. It's 1 million square feet. It is an enormous building. And Rick Walcott is their facility manager there. And he and I started about 3 or 4 years ago saying, we've got T8 fluorescent light bulbs everywhere, like 15,000 of them. So he says, can you help us on that? And I said, sure. Is this going to be one big project? He said, no, I'm going to do this as we can to keep our guys busy. So maybe he would buy 1,000 light bulbs at a time, LEDs, and rent a high lift. And maybe it was 6 weeks and they'd bang out 1,000 of them. And then he'd get approval from his superiors to do it again. Well, long story short, they replaced all 15,000 T8 lamps. They're saving over 1 million kilowatt hours in that facility. And Rick told me, if you want to get an idea of what that means, even when we added a second shift to that facility, our use was less than it was previously with one shift. And they're saving about $110,000 a year. Rick was and honored by management at Lippert for an outstanding program last year, and we were happy to. We've got these big, giant 3-foot by 4-foot checks that we'll take out to a site. If somebody wants some exposure. So that is one, to me, a real outstanding application here in our market. So let's go back to the application. Comes in, clear results. People are going to confirm that it's an eligible account. You can upload a recent utility bill, and those you're going to find online any number of places, or if you've got the hard copy, you can scan it and attach that. And then here's the types of things we're going to need: start and completion dates. If you're putting in new lights, motors, what have you, they're all going to have a specification sheet, and it's going to tell you, what voltage they operate at, their lifetime, expected lifetime, how many lumens or foot candles of illumination they'll put out, a quote or an invoice, and then again, a facility operating hours. Keep in mind, again, if it's custom, the more hours of operation, the greater your opportunity to save. And then a building HVAC type, that's not critical, but it can be. Com checks, probably none of you have ever heard of a com check. Stands for a compliance check. They're put together by architects or engineers, and you have to have a com check in order to get a building permit. We do provide new construction incentives to people building new facilities, so that's one more. Let's go to the next slide. I think we're probably getting close to the end there, Alex, if I remember right. Trade allies. I don't know that any of you are, but again, on that electricideas.com, you scroll down and there is a find a trade ally search tool, and you can do it by location, you can do it by type, electrician, HVAC, compressed air. And I really, if you don't typically know or have a contractor that you work with, I really would encourage you to use those trade allies, because these are people that we've worked with that, we know that they're good, they're honest, they're competitive, they're going to do a good job. And what's next here, Alex? I'm so plugged up right now. Okay, oh good. Let's go to this. Can you if you can't blow that up, I'm going to have to put on my glasses here. When you look at any of the bills, now on the page to or on the portion of it that's to the left, there's the usage history by month. And many times it's going to be, I could look at a bill, let's say it's a small business, an office of some type. And I see that November, December, January, February, their usage is really high, and that's consistent. Well, you can look right at that and say that's electric heat. You'll see that as well if someone's facility really relies on exterior lighting. Many times the bill will go down in the summer because it's still light out till 9:30, 10 o'clock, and those lights are going to be off by 5 o'clock in the morning. So over the course of a year, an outdoor light burns on average 12 hours a day, but not in the summertime. So we go over to the left, or the one on the right, the other left here, I guess, where it's, let's go down. There are some tables there on the right column, on the right, the bill on the right here. And it's going to show billed usage. And Alex, I have a tough time making that out. It looks like it's about maybe 5,250 kWh.
Yep, that's about right. 5,920 kWh.
Okay. So that's how many kWh this particular business used. The other thing right below that says KW, and do not confuse KW and KWH. KW is how much electricity did we need to develop at any point in time. So if that's 30 kW, that would be 30,000 watts. So obviously this isn't a house. You know, we don't bill residential customers on what's called demand. But if you stop and think about it, okay, you get up in the morning, many households, you know, you turn the light on, you go upstairs or you walk down the hall, you put a cup of coffee out, maybe the microwave to heat something up, you turn the television on or the radio on, and all those things, your expectation is when I turn those on, I expect that electricity to be there. So we have to prepare for that. So we know, for instance, if that is 30 kW there, we know that we have to have that amount every day for that customer. We can look at what those peaks are, and that's kind of a balancing act. You know, you hear about the grid, the regional transmission operators. We belong to what's called PJM, which is Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland. And every day they're in constant contact with our people on generation and distribution saying, what do you need tomorrow at 11 a.m. based on this temperature or based on that temperature? And that's a very, you know, it's a balancing act. You know, you'll read about grids collapsing and rolling brownouts. That's something I don't believe we have ever had. And I'm probably older than anybody here. I've never heard of a brownout or a blackout other than obviously a storm damage, but it is a tight wire act. So then you can look as well under that usage detail, you know, the daily cost compared to your average temperature. The thing on the left there under current charges. If I had my way, we would show here's what your charges are. The IURC in Indiana, the Michigan Public Service Commission want us to list all of these charges and riders separately. And I think it ends up confusing people. It creates more questions than it answers. I live in Niles actually, and we have a municipal utility, and we get our electric, water, and sewer from them. We pay a separate service charge for all three, even though it's the same company. So in Michigan, in Niles, I think I pay $67 a month if I have zero usage. So that's just kind of a quick primer on a bill. You can pick up, you can always feel free to call our customer solutions line. We have a number of customer service account reps that can review these with you if you have a place of business. They're happy to come out to your place of business and review bills for you. And next here, Alex. Oh, that was easy. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to open it up for questions. And if we do have time, I could also provide some updates, but we can also share those via email as well. So feel free to put any in the chat, any questions, or feel free to unmute, and ask a question.
And like everything you always wanted to know about energy efficiency, but were afraid to ask.
Well, while folks are maybe thinking about what energy efficiency projects they're thinking about, as they received, most of the folks from the EASSI program have received their energy assessment report, and perhaps you've looked at some of the potential projects to look into. But one question perhaps for folks on the call, have any of you applied for a rebate before, received an incentive from Indiana Michigan Power? Just with a show of hands, maybe you can put that in the chat, or give us a hands up or thumbs up on the screen. And then one question for you, Roger. Perhaps you can talk about maybe some misconceptions about participating in the incentive program, or some big big tip that folks should have entering into considering an incentive.
Sure.
Mhm.
Well, there's one question I see that Debbie Mullins has. Yes, Debbie, we do limit that to 90 days on that look back. It's better than it used to be. It used to be that we could not do it at all. And what the commissions call that is free ridership. So in other words, I did the project not knowing that there was going to be a rebate. But we can go back 90 days. We just can't go back beyond that at this point. So there is no limit to the number of applications you can submit in a year. The one I alluded to earlier from Lippert Components, I think one of the years when he was doing that, he submitted actually 6 applications over the course of the year in that large project that he did. And it doesn't have to be any threshold. I mean, if you've got a small shop and you've got 5 fluorescent light tubes that you want to change those. It doesn't have to be big. I've told people if I walk by a picnic table and there's $5 sitting there, if somebody helps me fill it out, I'm not going to let that $5 go to waste.
So Roger, would you say? Oh, I think Debbie's typing
Looks like
something
we're
in
going to
the
get another
chat.
one here, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Roger, would you say that maybe one of the big steps to take is if you're planning to do a project, look at the prescriptive rebates that are available. Plan ahead before you decide to purchase or install.
Exactly. And this one, Shelley, rebates are limited to 75% of the project cost. So for instance, if you spend $1,000, you're not automatically going to get $750. That's what it would be limited to. So if you looked at that prescriptive list, that would give you some idea of what the rebate could be. Now there are projects, I've had to turn down occasionally. One out in New Carlisle, they were going to put some speed drives on a line on a good sized company out there, and the rebates weren't the issue because as it was, I couldn't give him a rebate because he was going to spend. Go back and think of what 8 times 12.5 is. That's right about 100,000, I guess. $100,000 spend, and it was going to pay for itself in 90 days. So we couldn't provide him a rebate because it was too fast to pay back. So just make sure you know that delineation. You're not going to get a percentage of the total spend necessarily. It's going to be based on what that prescriptive list was, or how many kWh you save. And it can often be, especially if you're in a facility that has a lot of hours or runtime. If you do a lighting project and the facilities use 6,000 or 7,000 hours a year, very, very likely that that will end up getting capped at 75%. There's 8,760 hours in a year. So there are a lot of manufacturers that are open 362 days a year. So when they do a lighting project, it's going to be big savings. But there's offices that are open frequently, healthcare facilities, things like that. And don't discount, one of the things we didn't talk about it, but occupancy sensors. Those will fall under that prescriptive list. You can't save any more than the off position. So if somebody comes in, they turn their lights on, they wander down the hall, they go out for lunch, they go to a meeting. If you can control that with an occupancy sensor, you'll definitely save money and energy there.
Other questions? Feel free to put in the chat. Well, I have one question, maybe more than one, for you,
Sure.
Roger. So for the EASSI program, participants can receive up to $30,000 in grants for an energy efficiency project, potentially a solar project. And so I guess one question I have for you is, given that they have that, participants have that potential to receive up to that amount for a project, how would you recommend for folks to go about thinking about, facility improvements? Maybe there's a systems upgrade that they could do for their facility. They do also have their energy assessment report that gives them some prioritizes potential projects. But just also want to get your thoughts about how folks should approach an energy efficiency project, knowing that they could receive up to $30,000 from the city, in addition to the incentives that are available from
Sure.
Indiana Michigan Power.
Let me say one thing first of all. Whatever EASSI would do would have no bearing on what we would do. So it's not as if if you got a grant from EASSI, you're still going to get a rebate from us for a project. So I would encourage you to do that. And if it's grants that are for programs that are fairly wide ranging and could offer you good savings opportunities, those savings might help to pay for more things that could be done under this rebate program. So certainly take advantage of those. We've done programs. Michigan had a program that was targeted for municipalities and schools for exterior lighting. And the rebates there, when they announced them, they were, I'm going to say, roughly 3 to 4 times what our rebates were. And I strongly encouraged everybody to take advantage of that. That's free money. We're going to save you a lot of energy on a rebate for an exterior light, but if you can get a grant from another agency, take advantage of all of those opportunities. There's a lot. We're not giving money away because we're nice guys. Everybody pays into these programs. If you look, go back and look at that bill, there is an energy efficiency rider, and that's what funds these programs. So, take advantage. Since you've already paid in, take advantage of getting your money back. Do a project. If your next door neighbor's not doing a project, take some of their money back too. The becoming energy efficient is good for everybody.
And Roger, is there, knowing that there's there's grant money available from the city, rebates available through Indiana Michigan Power, are there certain technologies that you would recommend that perhaps could be like a revamp of a building or facility that could make significant energy savings for folks, especially with the grant dollars that are available, that
Sure.
might be something worthwhile pursuing?
That's a tightrope we walk in some respects, Alex, because we don't want to favor any particular contractor or a particular technology. I will tell you, however, some of the ductless heat pumps out there today. 20 years ago, everybody tell you you're nuts to put one in around here because you were going to have backup heat in the wintertime. Not anymore. And they're much more efficient than forced air gas furnaces. So, there's something that I'll kind of skirt that. Another thing that you might want to look at, Alex, are you familiar with desire.org? Desire? That's another great website that I think anybody could look at. It's just the letter D, Desire, SIRE.org. And that lists state by state all the various rebates, grants, agencies that you can approach to get information. There are so many opportunities out there, and Department of Energy has tons of information on their website. The more you read, the more you're going to be educated as a consumer, and you can get out there and you can have an impact on your bills.
All right, thank you, Roger. We are running close to our time here at 11. I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes to answer additional questions. Roger, are you available for?
I can actually stay. I'm gonna run into my doctor's.
Okay. Well, no worries. I do have some updates that we can go through very quickly for the EASSI folks that are on the call. So May 1st is when we'll review the energy assessment report with you. So be sure to sign up at this link here to schedule your meeting with us to review that report. Be sure to do that. We do have dates and times that are available the week of May 1st. So make sure to sign up and share that link with others to make sure they're available for that time and date. This bullet point talks just about that. Make sure to share that report, invite important stakeholders, decision makers, your board members, facilities point people, et cetera, to the meeting. Great to have all that important context in that meeting in terms of deciding which project you want to pursue. This Thursday, we have a Solar 101 webinar. It's also Earth Week, so and Earth Month, so a lot going on. But April 20th, we will also give an overview of solar and what that might look like for you. And then the following week, which is next Thursday, we have a financing webinar. And so we hope all these webinars sort of fall into place as you review your energy assessment report. You think about layering different types of incentives that are available. We have the EASSI grant. We have incentives and rebates available through Indiana Michigan Power. We will help loop you in as best as we can with incentives that are available from the federal government. There's a solar webinar coming up if you're thinking about solar or interested or want to learn more about it. And then we have our financing webinar as well. And so we hope that all these webinars, as you review that assessment report, help you think about potential projects and how to finance them. Just a quick pitch for folks that might be involved with a business or have board members that are part of a business. We do also have this other program that's available, and I know some folks potentially may have applied to it already. But for folks that are in the business community, we have this Vibrant Places program, and we do have a sun-powered grant, so incentives available for businesses within South Bend to apply, and that's for solar and batteries. And so this is just a highlight of that. So please feel free to share those with folks that perhaps are part of a business, maybe your board members or your network. We have as well Solar 101s specifically for this program and for businesses where we could talk about solar technology. We also provide a feasibility study for businesses once they complete their interest form. And you can apply at southbend.gov/vibrant-places. The pre-application takes about 5 minutes. It's some very basic questions. And from there, you're able to attend a Solar 101, learn if that's a good fit for your business. Here's an overview of the percent matching for this program. A lower matching percent compared to the EASSI program. And then with the federal incentive that's available, almost up to half of your total solar costs could be covered through the program. So just wanted to give a quick summary of that. We also have Earth Month, so happy Earth Month for folks. Feel free to go to our website here, earth.gov/Earth Month. We have different activities, including the webinars that we have this week and next week. And with that, those are my updates. Happy to answer additional questions and stay on the line, EASSI related, and Roger's also here to answer additional questions as well. All right. Well, maybe one question I have for you, Roger, while we still have some folks on the line. As we've done some of these energy assessments for the EASSI program, there's several nonprofits that have rooftop units. Some folks have a mix of rooftop units and like residential units that for their heating and cooling, their HVAC needs. And just wanted to get your thoughts about what's the best approach for those if, for example, if they have, a dozen or half a dozen of residential units that are serving their building on their rooftop, or they have an old rooftop unit and it's in need of a replacement, and just want to get your thoughts about what that might look like for folks that are interested in those upgrades.
Sure. There's where you could go to, again, electricideas.com and look for trade allies there under HVAC. You're going to see probably a lot of familiar names. There's a lot of companies that have worked with us both residentially and on the commercial end. And, pick someone that you either like the sound of their name or maybe you've worked with before. Have them come out and tell you. Again, the fact that we vet these people, we would like to think that these are going to be the kind of businesses that are going to come out and give you a good, honest summation of what your needs, how they can be met, and then certainly talk rebates with them. Ask them about rebates. Ask them about, well, if I go higher efficiency, in our climate, you've probably all heard of SEER, Seasonal Energy Efficiency Rating. There are going to be contractors out there that say in our climate, you don't need to have more than a 14 SEER. And they're probably right, except for about 4 days in the summer sometimes. And those 4 days, you wish you had a 17 SEER because you can't keep up and you've got the unit working so hard trying to deliver that you're working it too hard and you're spending too much. So that's the purpose of an incentive. If we can incent you to buy something that you wouldn't normally buy, that's the perfect situation.
All right. Thank you, Roger. Any additional questions from folks on the call? Feel free to put in the chat or unmute.
Well, Alex, I do have to run off now to another one, but thank you for the opportunity. And if you've got any questions, and certainly feel free to follow up.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining the webinar. We will have the webinar recorded, and I'll put that on our YouTube page, as well as sharing that via email to all our folks in the EASSI program. So thank you again for attending, and be sure to tune into our webinar that we have Thursday and next week on the following Thursday. Thank you again, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you, Roger. Thanks everyone for attending.
Take care, all.